Hi, I'm Ron Nutter and welcome to another edition of TechBytes with Ron Nutter. And in this video, or podcast, depending how you're listening to it, I'm going to show you how to put all your Home Assistant stuff, or at least a good deal of it, under one umbrella, and that's called Home Assistant. That starts now. This is something I had seen a while back, and I wasn't real sure. I didn't have a sense for it was going, but the folks who are behind Home Assistant, which is an open source application or environment, really, to call it a little bit more appropriately, has really made some significant changes in the past year. And it's to the point that I think it's more than just somebody who's is a geek at heart can do it. Really, if you've got just a little bit of experience putting things together, you'll be just fine. Now, let's go over to their website, and you're going to see this is just the main page, and this is something that you're going to want to spend a little time at, but don't let it get overwhelmed. There's several ways that you can implement Home Assistant, and I went with the Raspberry Pi. If I'm not on the Christmas list for the Raspberry Pi people by this year, I will be probably within 2019. I went and got a second one. Now, the one I've got here is the one I've been doing the Mycroft work with, but I got a second one because I didn't want to be swapping cards back and forth. So if you've got just a little bit of comfort factor with putting something like this together, then really all you have to do is this case comes apart. There's some double sticky tape. You'll put the two heat sinks on here. Just carefully put the case back together, and then other than putting the SD card back in here, that's pretty much it. Now, the Home Assistant piece, I wish I was going to order a separate monitor, and I was trying to figure out how to hook it into my TV. Don't bother. It's meant to be what's called a headless operation. That means you don't have to have a monitor, don't have to have a keyboard. So it's just a matter of burning the SD card, putting the image onto the card, putting it in the back, turning it on, and that's it. Now, there's two ways you can hook up the Home Assistant. You can either use the wired Ethernet connection here, or you can use wireless. For right now, let's keep it simple. I'm running mine on wired. There's really no benefit at this point, at this stage of the game, that I can see by putting onto wireless. So we're just going to get this up and running, and I got a couple of things to walk you through, and then really you'll be able to take it from there. Before we get started, thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel. This video on Home Assistant is just a foundational one to kind of get you to the point where it's up and running, because you're going to see more videos doing things like garage control. I've been in conversation with folks at hope I'm going to say this right, GarageIt. Or it's saying it's Garage Gadgets, what it's short for. That is already, one of those is already on the way to me, so you're going to see how to control your garage door with this. So there's so much fun to this. So let's go to walking you through getting that image burned onto the SD card. Okay, now make this process a little bit easier. I've gone ahead and downloaded the binary that we're going to have to get this all working. And I've gotten the Balena version of Etcher, which is the newest one out. So we will select image, and I've got it already here. Now, you'll want to keep it. Your first, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here several times. Your first inclination would be to unpack this. Don't. Leave it in that size. Leave it in that format of file. Don't try to unpack the any of the files inside of it. And click Open. Now, by default, it should pick up on your SD card you put in. If it shows up as locked, check the read-only tab on the adapter that goes in, because that's probably what's causing the problem. It did for me. So we're going to go ahead and accept that, and that's the only thing it should show. Now, depending on your computer, it may show your internal hard drive, so make sure you're picking the one with the right size. In my case, it's a 32 meg MicroSD card. And then we'll click Flash. Now, this is something unique to the Mac. Even though it's not changing the internal Mac drive, I still have to enter credentials for it to start. And this will take a couple of minutes. It's actually going through and unpacking the file right now. And you see it's starting. It takes just a few minutes. And as a precaution, once it finishes, and you can see it's moving through this at a pretty good pace. And if you've done this before, that's great, but I'm doing this part of the video for those that have never done this before. So it'll plow right through here, and I wouldn't be too concerned about the ETA to finish. But one of the things that it will do here is after it finishes, it will go verify that the files that are in the file you downloaded are actually there and that the media is the way it should be. So it'll say finishing here for just a second. And as you see now, it's going through the validation part. And this, again, takes a little bit of time, but it really saves a lot of hassle in terms of being able to, know whether or not your boot MicroSD is going to be a problem. And it pretty much flies right through it. Now, how fast it goes through is going to be directly determined on the speed of the processor that you're doing this with. And good idea is to not have anything else running in the machine while you're doing it. That way it's not competing for resources. So at this point, this is done. Now, this saying that this is disk is not readable, don't worry about that one. And you saw that little message pop up in the upper right hand corner. So we'll click eject, and for burning the image, we're done. So as you can see, that first part really is very straightforward. And I've been working with the Raspberry Pis for probably about 4 years now, I think, if memory serves me correctly. And it's gotten much easier. Early on, you had to do command line stuff to get the SD card to burn, and it's gotten much easier. So really, even if you've not done this before, if you walk through that video and the one that we're going to show you next on getting this up and running, really, it can't be any simpler. I was impressed. I've actually gone through the setup twice to make sure that I didn't have something different. So let's go ahead, and now we'll actually get into the setup of the Home Assistant. Now, at this point, I'm assuming you've gotten the SD card burned, or micro SD card. You put it in the slot. Do not apply power to this until you've got that card in the slot. Once you've got the card in the slot, hook it up to your wired network, plug in the power right there, and the rest will take care of itself. Okay, now that we've got the SD card moved over to the Raspberry Pi, if you get this screen, it's already ready to go in terms of doing some minor configuration. If you it's going to take about 20 minutes. It's a screen that's giving you that it's working on, but at least it has the web server piece up and running. So username, we'll just tell it admin. We'll username admin, and then we will give it a password. Now this, keep in mind, this is all a local account. And to do this again, okay, admin assistant local, so we'll just keep it the same for right now, and the password can be kind of whatever you want it to be. Again, keep in mind, these are local account, and this is the IP address for me that it's using. So if you can't, I know the documentation will say online that to use has.local if your wireless router doesn't support something called MDMS. Don't worry about it. You'll just need to go into the router and find the IP address that was last issued. At that point, that's what you can use. Now, it is suggested that you do what's called hard coding the IP address or statically assigning it. There's another way to do it if you're not familiar with getting into the guts of HAS.io and familiar with Linux. And that's to put what's called a DHCP reservation on the router. It's different with every router, but you'll see the MAC address you've got to have, and you can just move that over. And that way, every time it boots up, it will always get the same address every time. And we'll tell it to save login. Normally, I would say not to, but that's In case of a local situation, that's different. Now, at this point, you're up and running. Now, it's going to take it a few minutes to kind of figure out the lay of the land, and you can see it just got started. Normally, overview is where you will see things. Has.io is one of the things where you will probably get more familiar with it, and that you'll go on to the add-on store. Now, system will simply tell you this is the host name, that's the operating system. You can change the name if you want to. Now, if you want to go about hard coding an IP address, this is where you'll pull there's a whole process to go through, but really at this point, let's just keep it simple, and we'll go to the store. And one of the things that we will want to look at adding on here, because you'll need this at some point, and this is called the configurator. It is a web-based, say that easy 3 times, browser configuration editor, so you don't have to get into the guts of it. So we'll add the configurator, and we'll click install. And we'll take the defaults right now. We'll have it start on boot, and we won't have it auto update, because auto update can sometimes not be a good thing. And you'll want to go down, and 2 things that because I've seen this be a problem, and this is where the editing will come into play, is under allowed networks. Well, we can just change one here. That's not a problem. This first line here will probably be the one that works for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and change the second line, and we'll make it 10.0.0.0, and we'll make that a /8, not /9, /8. Because if you don't do that, you'll never get the configuration piece to work. You can change the TCP port number. Again, leave this all the same. But just leave it pretty much alone is what I'm trying to save. So we'll click on save. And again, it's the folks at Home Assistant I want to say Has.io, but it's Home Assistant, have really done a great job in making this easy. It's no longer do you have to be familiar with Linux. Trust me, I tried to get into what I know about Linux, and you're pretty much kept from doing any serious damage, which is a good thing. There's all sorts of tips and tricks that we're going to be coming across as we move forward with this. One of the next videos I'm going to do is show you how to get your LifeX bulbs up and running. You already see that it's found the Philips Hue. So this really, I think Home Assistant has got the potential of being probably the central management console for those who have a commercial IT background. And that's what I've been lacking. Yes, I can do some things with Home Assistant. Yes, I can do some things with Amazon Alexa, but that doesn't help you if you're you're trying to do something that voice is not letting you do. At least this way you have a central console that allows you to do at least some of the basics. And we're going to see as we get more into the other devices, but I think you can see already the potential that this has for it. So, if you're thinking about doing it, you've already seen the steps I went through to get mine up and running. Then the next video will be getting the LifeX bulbs up and running, and there's just a whole string of things. I'm already working on several additional videos to help you walk through some of this, so you don't have to get into some of the things that I've started off with to be able to get there. And it's really going to be very straightforward. We'll get into things like backing up the configuration. So if something does happen or you make a change and it doesn't work right, you can revert back or restore from it. There's all sorts of things to happen there. So that's all we're going to do for this time. If you've not been following some of the other videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. This is volume 1 of Making Your Home Work for You. This one's been out since earlier in 2018. I'm working on volume 2 right now, and that's where a lot of the things you've been seeing here in the past few months will be going into that version of the book. But there's things that are always going to be changing, and this is one of the things that has me excited about Home Assistant is because you saw a couple of videos I've done with Mycroft voice assistant. Mycroft ties into Home Assistant as well as Alexa and Google Assistant. They all have potential. So it's a matter of you can use Home Assistant as the central piece. Now, there are other platform options out there, but Home Assistant is the one that seems like people keep pointing me towards and I keep seeing references to. So please, let's just keep walking through the videos. Thank you for watching the channel. Please consider hitting that subscribe button and make sure you click on that little notifications icon as we both go through this journey of making our homes work for us. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much for watching the videos, and I'll see you next time.